Hello, my name is Noor Thomas, and for assignment 5, I am going to be looking at the topic of critical race theory and how it's being taught in schools. I think it's extremely important because it is fundamental knowledge that, this new generation, which is going to be the future generation, need to be equipped with that knowledge because they're going to be running our countries and hold really important positions within our societies. In terms of how I've experienced this event, honestly, there was a lack of experience. I don't think that I've ever received any proper education on the concept of critical race theory, and I've only come about it later in my 20s, to be honest. So, this is why I think it's super important. I think there's a big gap. So, I'm going to go through the background, solutions, and wrap up with a conclusion. In terms of background, we have to start with what is critical race theory. Two law professors in the States actually founded, the theory. And one of the professors, Kimberly Crenshaw, kind of defines it as this. This is quotations from her own words. The ways that racial inequality is facilitated, the ways that our history has created these inequalities that now can be almost effortlessly reproduced unless we can attend to the existence of these inequalities. So that's what critical race theory is. In terms of how I came about this theory and why it's kind of grasped my attention is obviously the news outlets in the media. So Trump, the former U.S. president, in 2022, said that the teaching of critical race theories in the academic framework was, quotation marks, psychological abuse. He also stated that again, quotation marks, this was a new curriculum designed to brainwash them, and that it's twisted and completely antithetical to everything that normal Americans of any color would wish to teach their kids. So obviously, my personal opinion, not a fan of Trump, but you would take these words with a grain of salt. And the current U.S. President Biden actually endorses the critical race theory and encourages it within the education department. So, that's kind of like where it started. And then that, I kind of read a bit more about it, and it turns out there's like recent stats that show that in the States, like from a Times news article, says that from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, federal, state, and local government officials introduced 563 anti-critical race theory measures, and nearly half of them were enacted or adopted. So it's kind of sad to see that there's still a very big push in the States against critical race theory. That prompted me to kind of look into Canada and what Canada has. There wasn't much information in Canada, but there was an article from Toronto Sun in 2021 that kind of, highlights different initiatives that, the Canadian government has been taking in terms of, teaching, the critical race theory. For example, like the Hamilton District School Board will be teaching a new anti-racist lesson plan starting in kindergarten. There was every member of Ontario's provincial parliament voted in favor of Bill 67, and that bill mandates the practice of critical race theory in the administration of public education. There's other initiatives that have taken place. For example, like Global Affairs Canada, it incorporated the ideology into the training of their employees and staff members. So, there were some quotations of some movements with critical race theories, but the kind of scary thing is that there's quite a large number of counter arguments or people who are opposed to teaching critical race theories in schools. So in the Toronto Sun article from 2021, and there's a National Post article in 2022, they cite some reason as to why they're against teaching critical race theory. In their words, they say that they reject the idea that Canada and other Western liberal democracies were built on principles like justice, peace, freedom, and inequality, and instead that they're built on like racism, colonialism, and white supremacy. They view critical race theory as a way of brainwashing people to believe that all non-white people are oppressed. And so, like, we need to make them more conscious of their oppression and advocate for changes in the system. And, you know, in the more extreme quotations in the article, there's things like Canada is racist and Canada has always been racist and Canada will always be racist. And that's what they think critical race theory is teaching. So, and there's also like a very big push saying that it kind of shows that like you're victimizing people who aren't like non-white. So that's a bit of background and both sides of the argument. In terms of solution, so I personally think that I'm a proponent of say it as it is, and we shouldn't hide from these atrocities. I think there's a way you can deliver the message so it's not victimizing people of color, but I think you have to teach it. You know what's funny? Because I think if you were to talk about what happened to the Indigenous people, First Nations people in Canada, people wouldn't say, oh, you need to hide that or change it or anything. But when it comes to people of color, there's almost this counter argument saying that we do need to. So I think there is a double standard here, and we're not being fair in terms of looking at minorities. So I think we should teach it. I think we should teach it in a more factual basis rather than an opinionated basis. And that other extreme of saying like, oh, all white people are racist and Canada's not founded on like justice, you know, like we don't have to go to that extreme. In terms of how this event has made me feel, kind of puzzled. You know, I thought everyone was a bigger supporter, especially in Canada, but like, honestly, I think it's the right thing to do is to still move forward with teaching critical race theory and doing it in an age-appropriate manner within our public education systems. But yeah, thank you for listening.